The auction was supposed to be finished before lunch. That was what Carl Whitmore kept telling everyone. He stood near the edge of the folding table in the county courthouse annex, tapping a polished brown shoe against the worn tile floor, smiling as if the final outcome had already been written and the rest of them were only waiting for the ink to dry. He was a white farm buyer in his late 50s, broad-shouldered, sunburned in the careful way of men who spent more time touring land than working it, and dressed in a tan sport coat over jeans that probably cost more than most work boots in the room. The land in question was 86 acres of farmland outside Mill Creek, Georgia. Red clay, old pecan trees, 2 broken barns, a narrow creek along the back line, and a white farmhouse that had not been painted in years but still stood straight against the fields. To Carl, it was distressed acreage. To Jordan Ellis, it was his grandmother's life. Jordan stood near the back of the room with a leather folder tucked beneath one arm. He was 33, black, quiet, and dressed in a navy suit that made several people glance at him twice, as though they could not decide whether he was a lawyer, a banker, or someone who had wandered into the wrong county office. He had inherited the Ellis farm 6 months earlier after his grandmother, Ruth Ellis, died at 91. Most people in Mill Creek remembered Ruth as a stubborn woman. Jordan remembered her as the woman who woke before sunrise, sang old hymns while frying cornmeal mush, and kept a shotgun behind the pantry door even after her knees got bad. She had raised him after his mother died. She had taught him which pecan trees bore sweetest after a wet spring, where the soil turned soft near the creek, and how to read a person's face when they told you the deal was fair. Fair is a word people use when they hope you don't know the numbers, she used to say. Jordan knew the numbers now. That was why he had come. The farm had been tied up in a probate dispute since Ruth's death. There were back taxes, repairs, family disagreements, and one cousin who wanted cash quickly enough to make dangerous decisions. Carl Whitmore had appeared 3 months earlier with an offer to buy the property for $640,000. He called it generous. Jordan called it theft in a clean envelope. He had ordered appraisals, reviewed county records, hired a land attorney, pulled old deeds, and paid for a mineral rights search after finding a strange clause in a 1948 transfer document. Everyone told him not to waste his money. The land was farmland. The mineral rights were probably severed, worthless, expired, or impossible to trace. But Ruth had kept everything, every deed, every tax receipt, every letter from lawyers long dead. Jordan had spent nights at her kitchen table reading brittle paper under a lamp, following signatures across decades. That was how he found the clue, a retained mineral reservation made by his great-grandfather Isaiah Ellis in 1952, when a timber company leased part of the back acreage but failed to acquire subsurface rights. Jordan did not know what it meant at first. Then the land attorney did. Then a geologist did. Then Carl Whitmore started calling every other day. That was when Jordan knew the offer had never been about barns or pecan trees. At 10 a.m., the county administrator, Linda Park, stepped to the front of the room and called the meeting to order. She was a tired-looking white woman with silver glasses and the permanent patience of someone who had spent 20 years explaining procedures to people who did not read them. This hearing concerns the proposed sale and partition settlement involving the Ellis family property, parcel 44-18, approximately 86 acres, she said. We are here to review submitted offers, ownership objections, and any relevant encumbrances before the court finalizes sale authorization. Carl smiled at the room like a man attending a formality. His attorney sat beside him, a thin white man named Brent Harlan who had already arranged his papers into perfect stacks. Jordan's cousin, Denise, sat near the aisle, arms crossed. She had wanted to accept Carl's offer immediately. She had bills, a son in college, and no patience for what she called Jordan's sentimental delay. "It's dirt," she had told him a month earlier. "Grandma is gone." Jordan had not answered then. He loved Denise, but she was wrong. It was never just dirt. Linda Park looked toward the table. "Mr. Whitmore's offer is currently the highest written purchase proposal on record at $640,000. Carl nodded modestly as if embarrassed by his own generosity. Linda continued. Mr. Jordan Ellis, as heir and objecting party, has challenged the valuation and requested consideration of additional property interests. Carl gave a soft laugh. Not loud, just enough. Jordan looked at him. Carl raised both hands slightly. No disrespect. That usually meant disrespect had already entered the room. Linda looked over her glasses. Mr. Whitmore, please refrain from comments unless called. Of course. Linda turned to Jordan. Mr. Ellis, you may present your objection. Jordan walked to the front with his folder. The room watched him. A handful of relatives sat along the back wall. 2 local farmers, a county clerk, Carl's attorney, a young reporter from the Mill Creek Gazette, probably hoping for a story about family land, taxes, and development pressure. Jordan placed his folder on the table and opened it. My objection is to the valuation basis, he said. The current offer treats the property as distressed agricultural land with limited structural value. That valuation is incomplete. Carl leaned back, smiling already. Jordan continued. The property includes retained subsurface mineral rights held continuously by the Ellis family line according to deed records dating back to 1952. Carl laughed. This time, everyone heard it. I'm sorry, he said, though he clearly was not. Mineral rights. Jordan turned toward him. Yes. Carl looked around the room, inviting others to share the joke. Son, this is pecan land. Jordan said nothing. Carl continued. I've bought farms across 3 counties. Everybody thinks there's something under the ground when they don't like the price. Oil, gas, clay, gold, buried treasure. Usually what's under the ground is roots and debt. A few people chuckled. Denise looked down. Jordan felt the old familiar heat rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. My name is Jordan Ellis, not son. The room quieted. Carl's smile tightened. Figure of speech. Use another one. Linda Park cleared her throat. Mr. Whitmore. Carl raised his hands again, performing innocence. Fine, Mr. Ellis. I'm simply saying that a mineral rights theory does not make a falling down farm worth millions. Jordan looked back at Linda. May I continue? She nodded. Please. Jordan removed a certified deed copy. The 1952 timber lease conveyed surface access for extraction of timber and limited quarry testing rights, but explicitly retained all subsurface mineral rights to Isaiah Ellis and his heirs. Carl's attorney finally looked up. Jordan noticed. Carl did too, and his smile faltered. Brent Harlan leaned toward Carl and whispered something. Carl waved him off. Old deed language doesn't mean there's anything valuable there. Jordan turned a page. In 1987, a utility easement attempted to clarify subsurface access for a pipeline survey, but acknowledged the Ellis family as the mineral rights holder of record. Brent Harlan sat straighter. Linda Park reached for the document. Do you have certified copies? Yes. Jordan handed them to her. Carl's voice sharpened. Even if that's accurate, it's irrelevant unless there's a proven reserve. Jordan looked at him. Then why did your company request a mineral abstract 2 months before making the offer? The room went still. Carl's face changed, only for a second, but everyone saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, Carl said. Jordan opened another section of the folder. Whitmore Agricultural Holdings submitted a document request through county records on March 14th for parcel 44-18 mineral history, subsurface title, and prior exploratory surveys. Carl's attorney whispered urgently now. Linda Park frowned. Mr. Whitmore. Carl's smile returned, thinner this time. Routine due diligence. Jordan nodded. So routine that your offer letter did not mention mineral rights once. It was a surface land purchase offer. It included language assigning all rights, title, and interests connected to the parcel. That's standard. Not when the buyer knows the seller may not understand what is being transferred. A murmur moved through the room. Carl's expression hardened. Mr. Ellis, he said, I understand you're trying to protect family property. I respect that. But don't mistake internet research for land valuation. There it was. The shift. Not quite open insult. Not quite enough for the room to reject. Just enough to make Jordan sound inexperienced, emotional, maybe a little foolish. Jordan had been waiting for it. He had been called worse in rooms where people assumed knowledge belonged to the person with the drawl, the boots, or the family name printed on bank signs. Carl leaned forward. You inherited a farm. That doesn't make you a landman. Jordan looked at him steadily. And buying land cheap doesn't make you honest. Someone in the back whispered, Lord. Linda Park tapped her pen. Gentlemen. Carl's face reddened. I made a fair offer on property your family can't maintain. Jordan's cousin Denise flinched. Jordan looked at Carl, then at his cousin, then back to Linda. The offer is not fair because it excludes material property value. Carl laughed again, but there was less confidence in it now. What material value? You keep waving around old paper like it turns clay into diamonds. Jordan opened his laptop. The mineral rights file was sealed during probate review, pending verification of chain of title and survey attachments. My attorney filed to unseal it after the abstract search confirmed continuity. Brent Harlan stood suddenly. Ms. Park, we object to any newly introduced materials without prior circulation. Linda looked at him. On what basis? We have not reviewed them. Jordan said, the file was available to any party after the unsealing order yesterday at 4 p.m. Brent's face tightened. We were not notified. Linda checked her screen. Notice was sent through the court portal to all registered counsel. Brent sat down slowly. Carl looked at him, then at Jordan. For the first time, Carl was no longer smiling. Linda turned to Jordan. Do you have the unsealed file? Yes. Proceed. Jordan connected his laptop to the room's small projector. The wall screen flickered. A scanned document appeared. Ellis Mineral Rights Abstract. Parcel 44-18. Jordan did not rush. He opened the chain of title section first. Isaiah Ellis, 1952. Ruth Ellis, inheritance. Recorded acknowledgments, easement references. Probate confirmation. No severance deed found, no expiration clause. Mineral rights retained. Then he opened the survey attachment. The room leaned forward. A geological assessment map filled the screen. The back 40 acres were marked with shaded zones and coded mineral indicators. Jordan said, this assessment was commissioned in 1991 by a regional materials company that explored kaolin and rare earth clay deposits in the county. The company dissolved before lease negotiations were completed. The file remained attached to the estate records but was never digitized into the public parcel summary. Carl's mouth opened slightly. Jordan clicked to the next page. Preliminary deposit evaluation, kaolin-grade clay, trace rare earth elements, commercial extraction potential pending modern survey. Carl's attorney put both hands over his mouth. Linda Park stared at the screen. Denise sat up slowly. Jordan continued. 2 weeks ago, I commissioned an updated limited analysis from Marlowe Geological Services. He clicked again. A new report appeared. No readable numbers remained long on the screen, but the summary was clear enough. Subsurface valuation estimate range, significantly above surface agricultural value. Recommended negotiation range for mineral lease, 7 figures. Minimum pending full exploratory agreement. The room erupted. 7 figures? Under that farm. Did Ruth know? Carl stood. This is speculative. Jordan turned toward him. Then why did your company create an affiliated entity called Whitmore Materials LLC 11 days after requesting the mineral abstract? Carl froze. The room went silent again. Jordan clicked one more tab. State Corporate Filing. Whitmore Materials LLC. Registered Agent, Carl Whitmore. Formation date, March 25th. Business purpose, mineral extraction, clay processing, aggregate and subsurface materials development. Carl's face went pale. Brent Harlan whispered, Carl. Jordan's voice stayed even. You created a mineral extraction entity before offering my family agricultural land pricing. Carl looked around the room, searching for an exit that was not physical. This is business, he said. Due diligence is not illegal. No, Jordan said, but hiding what you know while pushing a family under probate pressure to sign away rights at a fraction of value is exactly why courts review partition sales. Linda Park looked at Carl with a new expression now. Not politeness, scrutiny. Carl tried to recover. My offer was based on surface conditions. If Mr. Ellis thinks the mineral rights are valuable, he's free to prove it in the market. Jordan nodded. That's what I intend to do. He clicked to the final document. A signed letter appeared. Marlowe Geological Services and Southern Clay Cooperative. Preliminary mineral lease interest letter. Contingent on title confirmation and environmental review. Denise stood slowly in the back. Jordan, she said, her voice shaking. What does that mean? He looked at her gently. It means Grandma's land is worth more than Carl offered, a lot more, and we don't have to sell the whole farm to protect the family. Denise covered her mouth. Carl slammed a hand on the table. This is not a lease auction. I came here with a clean purchase offer. Jordan looked at him. You came here with a trap. Carl pointed at him. You better watch what you say. The room chilled. Jordan stood very still. He knew that tone. He had heard versions of it from men who thought anger sounded authoritative when it came from them and dangerous when it came from him. Linda Park's voice cut through the room. Mr. Whitmore, sit down. Carl turned. Ms. Park, sit down or I will have you removed from the hearing. He sat. The reporter was writing quickly now. Linda adjusted her glasses and looked at the documents on her table. Based on newly available information regarding retained mineral rights and material valuation concerns, I will recommend that the court reject the current purchase offer as inadequate and suspend sale authorization pending independent appraisal of both surface and subsurface rights. Brent Harlan stood again. We object. Noted, Linda said. The recommendation stands. Carl stared at her, stunned. You're killing the deal over old dirt reports? Linda looked at him. I'm preventing a potentially unconscionable sale. The words landed cleanly. Carl had no answer. For a moment, Jordan looked at the screen where his great-grandfather's name appeared in the chain of title. Isaiah Ellis. A man born into a county that would have tried to deny him every form of ownership if it could. A man who had held on to mineral rights in a deed clause nobody in the family fully understood for decades. Ruth had kept the papers. Jordan had read them. That was the line between loss and leverage. The hearing adjourned at 11:46 a.m. No sale, no quick signature, no cheap transfer hidden behind polite pressure. People gathered around Jordan almost immediately, relatives first, then the reporter, then two local farmers who wanted to know whether their own deeds had similar clauses. Denise pushed through them, eyes wet. Jordan, she said, I'm sorry. He turned to her. She shook her head. I thought you were just dragging this out because you couldn't let go. I know. I didn't understand. I know. She looked toward the screen, now dimmed. Grandma kept all that. Every page. Denise laughed through tears. That sounds like her. It does. She hugged him suddenly, hard. Jordan held her. Across the room, Carl was packing his briefcase with jerky movements. His attorney spoke in low, urgent tones. Carl did not look at Jordan, not once. But when he reached the door, Jordan called his name. Mr. Whitmore. Carl stopped. The room quieted again. Jordan walked toward him slowly. You laughed at my valuation. Carl's jaw tightened. You made your point. No, Jordan said. The file made it. Carl looked away. Jordan continued. You saw an old black family farm and thought pressure would do what your offer couldn't. You assumed we didn't know what we had. Carl's face reddened. This isn't about race. Jordan almost smiled. Men like Carl always said that as though the denial itself closed the case. Race is why you thought calling me son would land, Jordan said. Money is why you wanted the land. Arrogance is why you thought nobody would open the file. Carl said nothing. Jordan lowered his voice. Next time, make a fair offer before the truth is projected behind you. Carl left without answering. The story hit the Mill Creek Gazette the next morning. Black Heir blocks farm sale after mineral rights discovery. Jordan hated the headline but appreciated the article. The reporter had been careful. She explained the probate dispute, the mineral rights file, the buyer's abstract request, and the formation of Whitmore Materials, LLC. She quoted Linda Park saying the county had a duty to prevent undervalued sales when material rights were at issue. By noon, bigger outlets had picked it up. By evening, Jordan's phone would not stop ringing. Land attorneys, mineral brokers, cousins he had not heard from in years, reporters, neighbors, a state agriculture professor. A filmmaker who said the story had ancestral justice energy, which made Jordan end the call. The most important call came from Ruth's old lawyer, Mr. Calvin Price, a black attorney in his 70s who had helped her update her will years earlier. I told Ruth to organize those papers, Calvin said. Jordan smiled into the phone. She did more than organize them. She practically built a vault. She didn't trust courthouses to remember black ownership kindly. No, sir. She was right. Jordan looked out the farmhouse kitchen window at the back field, where the clay rose in red ridges after rain. Did she know about the minerals? Calvin paused. She suspected there was value. I don't think she knew how much, but she knew men kept asking about land they claimed wasn't worth much. Jordan closed his eyes for a moment. Of course she knew. Not the geology, maybe, but the people. That had always been enough. In the months that followed, everything became more complicated. Value did not solve family conflict. It changed its shape. Some cousins wanted to lease the mineral rights immediately. Some wanted to sell. Denise, now firmly on Jordan's side, wanted to preserve the farmhouse and lease only under strict conditions. Jordan wanted a full environmental review before any extraction discussion. He had no interest in saving the farm from Carl, only to let another company destroy the creek. Negotiations were slow. This time, though, they happened from strength. The family hired independent counsel. A modern geological survey confirmed valuable clay deposits, but also identified sensitive watershed areas. Jordan insisted that any deal protect the creek, limit surface disruption, and preserve at least 50 acres for agricultural use. Several companies walked away. Good, Jordan thought. Let them. Finally, a cooperative materials company made a proposal, limited extraction rights on a small section of the back acreage, reclamation requirements, annual royalties, environmental oversight, and a signing payment large enough to clear taxes, repair the farmhouse, and distribute money to heirs without selling the land. Jordan brought the proposal to the family meeting at the church fellowship hall. This time, nobody laughed. He stood at the front with maps, legal summaries, and a financial breakdown. Older relatives sat with paper cups of coffee. Younger ones took notes on phones. Denise sat in the front row, arms crossed again, but now in concentration rather than frustration. Jordan explained every clause, every risk, every protection. Then he said, "We don't have to do this. We can reject it. But if we accept as owners, not as people being pushed." His Uncle Ray raised a hand. "And the farmhouse?" "Stays." "The pecan trees?" "Stay." "The creek?" "Protected, with monitoring and penalties." Denise looked at the map. "And Grandma's name?" Jordan smiled. "I was getting to that." He clicked to the last slide. Ellis Farm Preservation Trust. The trust would hold the farmhouse, 30 acres of farmland, the pecan grove, and the family cemetery permanently. Royalties would fund upkeep, scholarships for Ellis descendants, and a small agricultural training program for young black farmers in the county. For once, the room was quiet in the right way. Uncle Ray wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. Denise whispered, "She would have liked that." Jordan nodded. "I think so." The family voted yes, not unanimously. Families rarely did anything unanimously except eat, but the support was strong enough. 6 months after the courthouse hearing, Jordan stood at the edge of the Ellis farm while workers replaced the roof of the farmhouse. The old boards had been stripped, fresh white paint was going up. The barns were still rough, but one had been stabilized. The pecan trees were heavy with green husks. A sign had been installed near the front road. Ellis Farm, established 1919. Preserved by the descendants of Isaiah and Ruth. Ellis Jordan stood looking at it longer than he expected. Denise walked up beside him. "You okay?" "No," she nodded. "Good no or bad no?" He smiled faintly. "Big no." She laughed. "That makes no sense." "It does to me." A pickup slowed on the road. For one strange second, Jordan thought it might be Carl Whitmore. It was not. It was a young black man in a county extension truck. He stepped out with a clipboard, introduced himself as Marcus Hill, and said he was there to discuss the training program. "I grew up 2 towns over," Marcus said. "My grandfather lost his land in a tax sale. When I heard what y'all were building here, I wanted to help." Jordan shook his hand. "Then help." By the following spring, the Ellis farm hosted its first workshop. 23 people came. Some were young farmers. Some were heirs trying to understand tangled land records. Some were older folks with file boxes full of deeds, wills, tax receipts, and maps they had never known how to read. A black land attorney led a session on heirs' property. A soil expert explained conservation. Jordan spoke about mineral rights, not as a miracle story, but as a warning. "Don't assume land is worth what someone offers," he told them. "Don't assume the public parcel summary tells the whole story. Don't assume old papers are useless, and never let urgency make you sign away what patience could reveal." A woman in the back raised her hand. "What if the family is fighting?" Jordan smiled sadly. "Then you start there, because outside buyers love family fights. They turn division into discounts." People nodded. Afterward, an elderly man approached with a shoebox of papers. "My daddy told me never throw these out," he said. Jordan looked at the box. "Then let's see what your daddy kept." That became the work. Not just the farm, the records, the questions, the refusal to treat blackland loss as inevitable. 3 years later, the Ellis Farm Preservation Trust had helped 12 families review old deeds, prevent 2 forced sales, and identify 1 additional mineral reservation in a neighboring county. The agricultural training program had grown. The pecan grove produced again. The farmhouse became a community office and archive center, with Ruth's old kitchen table placed in the front room beneath a framed photograph of her standing in the field with one hand on her hip. Jordan kept the original 1952 deed in a fireproof case. A copy hung on the wall. Visitors often stood before it quietly. One afternoon, Linda Park came by after retiring from the county office. She brought a folder of old procedural notes and a pound cake. "I thought your archive might want these," she said. Jordan accepted both, especially the pound cake. She laughed. They walked out toward the pecan trees. "I still think about that hearing," Linda said. "So do I. I should have questioned Whitmore's offer earlier." Jordan looked at her. "Yes," he said. She nodded, accepting it. "I've changed the checklist. Mineral rights, timber rights, easements, water access, development restrictions. All separate valuation questions now before sale approval." Jordan smiled slightly. "That's good. It won't fix everything." "No. But maybe the next family gets asked better questions. That matters." They stood in the shade a while. The farm was noisy now in a way it had not been after Ruth died. Someone hammering near the barn, children laughing by the grove, a tractor starting in the distance, life returning not as nostalgia but as work. Later that evening, Jordan sat alone at Ruth's kitchen table. The wood still carried faint knife marks from years of meals. He opened her old recipe notebook, though he was not looking for a recipe. Between pages for peach preserves and sweet potato biscuits, she had tucked a note in her careful handwriting. Jordan had found it only recently. It read, "Land remembers who stayed. Papers remember what people try to take." Read both. He touched the edge of the paper. Outside, the sun lowered over the backfield, turning the red clay deep orange. Somewhere beneath that ground lay the minerals Carl Whitmore had tried to buy cheaply. But Jordan no longer thought of the land's value only in what could be extracted from it. The real value had been in what the land made possible once it remained theirs. A repaired house, a family less divided, a trust, a training program, a room where other families could learn to read the fine print before someone with a smile and a low offer took advantage of their grief. Carl had laughed at his valuation because he thought Jordan was only an heir, a grieving grandson, a black man with old dirt and sentimental claims. He had not understood that inheritance was not just receiving property. Sometimes inheritance meant receiving unfinished defense. Ruth had kept the papers. Isaiah had kept the rights. Jordan had opened the file. And when the mineral rights record was unsealed, it did more than raise the price of the farm. It revealed the truth buried beneath generations of polite offers and quiet pressure. The Ellis land had never been worthless. The only people who called it that were the ones hoping to own it cheap.